Today, I have a very special guest. It is a return guest. It is the return of Chris Lovett. Welcome to the show, Chris, again. How are you?
I'm good, Ricky, mate. Thank you very much for having me on for a second time. I feel so
Second
privileged.
time. Yeah, not many guests have come back on twice. So I think you and Steve McDermott are the only ones that come back on. So yeah, there you go. Must
Oh,
say
mate,
something about you, Chris. There we
yeah,
go.
in good company. I'm in good company, mate. Yeah, thank you.
Well, Chris, I'm glad to have you on because one of the reasons that I wanted to get you on was because you did something very exciting this year. What was it that you did earlier on this year?
I know. Let's build it up a bit more, shall we?
Yeah, we should really. Yeah.
One of those things that was a kind of a life achievement was to do a TEDx talk. So I did manage to get myself onto a circular red bit of carpet, speak for about 15 minutes to a live audience of a few hundred people, and it was streamed around the world, and then it's been put on the TED website. So I still can't believe it myself, but I'm looking forward to kind of breaking it down as to how on earth that happened and any kind of subsequent impact off the back of it, mate. So yeah, thanks for having
Yeah.
me back on again.
No, it's a pleasure, and yeah, congratulations to you. It was so exciting when I saw that when it popped up on social media earlier this year. I was like, oh my god, amazing! Because a lot of the listeners will know it's one of the things I want to do this year as well. So it was back in March, I believe, wasn't it? March 2022,
Yeah,
and it was TEDx Holt London, I believe.
that's it. That's
Right,
it.
and I think for anyone that's listening, you can go and go check it out. It's called Less Busy, More Impact. So if anybody wants to go watch this after, we'll put a link in the show notes as well, so you can go watch this. But firstly, I guess a lot of people, a lot of speakers want to do a TED talk. Why did you want to do a TEDx or TED talk in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So a few years ago, when I was kind of on this kind of road of discovering my own voice, thinking like I kind of had something to say that would help people at scale. And as you know, the book Discovery of Less came out in 2021, and I'd kind of been on this journey of letting go of everything, all of those preconceived ideas, stories, plus all the clutter. So yeah, the backstory begins. Sold everything I ever owned, quit a career that was unfulfilling, went traveling and came back and then told my story to my friends. And then my friend said, you should write a book about this. And I said, no, well, I'm not a writer. That's not who I am, which was one of the stories that I eventually decluttered. Then, yeah, the more people just said to me, you should write a book about this. So I did. And at the same time, I was telling these stories to small groups of people. And then slowly but surely, I would be learning myself at the same time, learning about myself, but learning about other people. So rather than listen to music all the time, which I still love to do, by the way, I've listened to podcasts. And so learning became quite important. And part of that is TED. You can't really jump into a podcast or go on a personal development journey without stumbling on a TED talk. And so I started to collect new ideas, new ways of thinking, some of them being about like procrastination. So Tim Urban was
Yeah, I love
with
that
one
one.
of the, yeah, and we'll come on to that one later.
Ah, good, cool,
That
nice.
plays
Yeah.
a role in this as well. Yeah, lots of things about sustainability and storytelling, leadership, loads and loads of topics. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I almost saw it as a place where inspirational people and subject matter experts could go and share their ideas in 15 minutes or less. And I was like, you know what? I wonder what that would be like. And I
Mm.
thought nothing of it after that. The book came out, and I thought maybe now I've got a little bit more of a platform. So is this more of a possibility? And then we'll go on to that in a minute. But yeah, so
Sure.
the background basically was I saw lots of TED Talks, was inspired by lots of people, and moved away from the mindset of I could never do something like that to what if
Mm.
I could and how. So that's how it all began.
Brilliant, fantastic. And it's a great talk as well. And I'm inspired by your stuff anyway, Chris. That's why we
God
got you
bless
on,
you, mate.
which is episode 57, by the way. A little plug there to the listeners. Go
Yeah.
back to episode
Yes.
57 to listen to that. Great. So I guess that, so yeah, inspired then to to go do this. You've got this platform, you're sharing this wonderful story, this message to people, which is, and as we've kind of mentioned on the podcast, there's not much of these messages happening in the UK. There's a lot of it, obviously, that happens in America with the minimalists, and this, what you're doing, is fantastic. So, what led you then to decide, you know what, I'm going to pick this place, what, TEDx Holt London? Was there a case of searching through different places, cities, towns, that you said, you know what, why is it TEDx Holt London that you decided to apply for, and what was that application process like?
Yeah, I saw a couple of people on LinkedIn who ran TEDx's, and so at first it was understanding the whole concept of TED. So there was so for people who don't know, there's TED and then there's TEDx. So the TED is almost like the super professional, elite tier speakers where you have to pay quite a lot of money to attend. Again, like you're saying, they probably are mostly in America, but they do go around the world. I thought at that moment that's probably a bit of a stretch, but TEDx is more reachable, and so people volunteer to host TEDx's around smaller cities and towns around the world. And I went and did a couple of searches, just Google searches and a bit on LinkedIn to find out people who volunteered to run these events because they more independently ran events with the blessing of TED. Basically, for other voices to be captured rather than just the top elite people. So I found a few. I emailed a couple of people. And I never got a response, and I thought maybe this is not the way to kind of explore this. And TEDx Holt London was just by coincidence, really. So, and I always look at opportunities in this way, Rick. I always think if you put yourself into a position to be open to opportunities, all of a sudden opportunities start to appear. So for me, it wasn't a case of just continually searching. It was to be open to the possibility of something will happen. And once those opportunities are there, grab them. And so it all started by an individual who endorsed Discovery of Less, the book, a guy called Jamil Qureshi, right, who inspires me. He's one of the guys that I'm super into. He's if people Google him, he's been on like Stephen Bartlett's podcast. He's been on all sorts. He's a world-renowned psychologist. A few years ago, I saw him do a talk. I messaged him and I said, "That's great, mate. Want to be my friend?" and we connected on LinkedIn. And then a few years later, I wrote out to him. I said, "Look, mate, I've quoted you in my book. Would you like to do an endorsement?" He didn't get back to me, so I chased him again and again and again. And eventually, he got back to me and said, "Yeah, it's a really good concept. This whole less is more minimalist approach. Here's my 3 lines. Stick it in the book." I was like, "Wow, that's great." So this guy, who's a world-renowned speaker, goes all around Europe and the world, and he's the most booked speaker that I know of. He has endorsed my book and me. That's a huge win for me, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw him do a TEDx talk at Holt, London, in October 2021. And rather than see, these are the things about opportunities, grabbing those breadcrumbs and then going and being brave and going, okay, what can I do about this now? So in the past, Chris would have seen Jamil do a talk in London at TEDx and think, oh, good for him. I wish I'd have done that. And that's it. That's where the mindset would have stopped. Good for you, mate. Little bit of jealousy, little bit of envy. Put a little comment on LinkedIn and say, nice one, mate. Be looking forward to listening to it. And that would have stopped. But I thought about it and I was like, let's connect the dots here. This guy has endorsed me. He's endorsed the book. He's done a TED talk. How can I now follow in his footsteps? So I reached out and I looked up TEDx Holt London, and they were looking for speakers.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so, I thought, why not?
Yeah.
If someone else has already done it, then if they want a recommendation, then they can ask Jamil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the process basically went through almost like applying for a job.
Yeah.
You send in your bio and what you would like to speak about. Very official, of course. It's TED.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, someone emailed me back, and I was like, "This is weird."
Wow. Yeah.
And they said, "We'd love to interview you. You're just in time because we're shutting our requests down at the end of the week." And I was like, "There you go. That's again the universe aligns. You put yourself in
Yeah.
the position to be open to opportunities, and stuff starts to happen." So by the end of the week, 48 hours, 72 hours later, I'm on a Zoom with 3 of the students who are organizing the TED. They tell me all about it, and they said, "Right, Chris, what makes you so different? We've got
Yeah.
6 speakers, hundreds and hundreds of applicants. Why you?" And I just said, "Because everyone's really busy, and it can't go on anymore. Here's my story about getting rid of all my old clutter, and
Yeah.
now how we can use that use their concept of minimalism in our professional life. So actually, we can be less busy
Yeah.
and have more of an impact." And they went, "Oh, we've never heard of that before." And I went,
Great.
"Real."
Yeah.
24 hours later, they then emailed me back to say, "Would you like to join us on, I can't remember the date now, on this date, on a Sunday in March?" And of course, I was like, "Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, of course."
I have to check my diary. I'm so busy. Hang on. Hold
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, going after all that
Yeah.
effort. It's like going, "No,
Yeah.
I'm all good, mate. Thank you."
That would be quite ironic, wouldn't it, Chris, from yourself as a minimalist to reply and say, I'm busy that day. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to check that I could do this. No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can. I'm
Yeah.
not going to bother.
Yeah.
But but yeah. And I've gone through a lot of periods recently where over the last couple kind of years I've just put myself forward for stuff that scares me,
Yeah.
and then realised that actually it wasn't that scary after. So
Yeah.
this was
Yeah.
just another
Yeah.
one of those things where went on to did the interview, and then they asked me, "So would you like to be the speaker number 1 to open?" I was like, "To open it? Oh man!" It's like,
Wow. Yeah.
at least put me in the middle somewhere. But I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll open it, no problem." And so yeah, so that was how it all came about. So following the breadcrumbs, putting on the thread, there's a bit of bravery mixed in there, but also that mindset of being open to the art of the possible
Yeah.
and being brave enough to ask, because don't ask, don't get. And I
Yeah.
asked and I got.
Yeah, an amazing work on that. I think there's a big reason why as well with the book, the whole absorbed into this whole message that you want to share to people, your story, because it is such an important thing, especially in the corporate and business world about less, But I think that's one of the reasons, me openly, that why I haven't decided to do anything with my own application is because I haven't got a big enough reason why yet. I'm kind of searching for something. I think when I wanted to do it this year, I thought there's that question that you mentioned about what makes you so different. And I know there's so many personal development fans out there that would love to do a TED talk, but there's so much out there that's already been done. And that's that key question, is it what makes you different? And I think that's the big thing, because hundreds and hundreds of applicants, but which was a great answer that you had. And I think absolutely right that there's none of that on this scale. Certainly I've not seen in the UK at least. So
Yeah,
that's great. Well,
yeah.
so brilliant. So TEDx Alt London. Is there a question for you, Chris, here as well? Is there a question that I hear a lot of people about? Does it have to be local to where you live? Because you grew up in London, I believe. Is that right?
I'm a Londoner, born and bred. So no, basically, right. Out
Right.
of the 6 speakers that were there were 2 Londoners, me and a guy called Kane Kawasaki, who
Cool name. Yeah.
I know, right? So he's huge, absolutely huge on TikTok. I
Right.
had no idea who he was, but he is a Black history commentator. He looks at diversity. He used to be a teacher, lovely guy. I recommend checking him out.
Brilliant.
And there was another lady who worked or was a professor at Holt University called Megan Wrights. She is a specialist in leadership and organizational activism. Fascinating woman, right?
Yeah.
The other 3, a guy from LA, Anthony Anthony Gordon, a lady from Russia, and another lady from Israel. So actually, no.
Wow, yeah.
So it was a quite a
Interesting.
very, obviously it's an international
Yeah.
business school. So no, it didn't matter. The guys and girls who were running the whole operation were from Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, France. It
Mm,
was a real mix, and it was amazing. So no, you do not
right.
have to be from my own awareness or my own knowledge. I don't believe you have to be local to the area
Right.
to apply.
Okay, that's great. Fascinating. That, yeah. Really, because that's one of the key things I think. I sometimes think about where I grew up, and I've left that camp now, so I don't really have much
Mhm.
impact around the city anymore. And that was one of the questions on my mind, thinking, could I be a TEDx speaker in Peterborough, where
Oh
I
yeah,
don't really work in Peterborough anymore? You know, so well, that's great, cool. Okay, so
well
that
yeah,
opens the scope then to literally to go anywhere.
well
Yeah,
potentially yeah, and almost like it might be for reflecting is like, is that one of the things holding me back from you know looking at looking at a wider demographic or a bit of wider geography, maybe. And again, something that might have been things that would have held me back in the past is like,
yeah,
oh, that's a bit too far to travel.
yeah, yeah. Of
Because
course, yeah,
I saw a TEDx in Hull, right?
right, yeah,
And I was like, I've never been there. I'll rule that one out straight away.
right, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
why?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
no other reason.
But this is
But
great as well because
yeah,
I'm thinking, Europe, international. There could be some research here for countries, researching countries that are overproductive or underproductive, and think about that's where my message could work really well. Maybe TEDx, Stockholm or whatever it might be. There's some real scope there of thinking. Actually, I can actually make an impact with this with the people of that city. So yeah, I love that.
yeah, man.
Brilliant.
Yeah, man.
So you've been a bit brave. You've followed those breadcrumbs. You've
Yeah.
decided to apply for it. Got a great endorsement there as a bit of backup there, I guess, as well to help support with the book as well. And then applied for it. Found out you've gone to go meet them. And then I guess from that point on, the next point when you said to join them, what happened from
Yeah.
that point then?
Yeah. So again, it's all very structured, as you would kind of expect with TED. They don't really want some random to come in and um, kind of dilute the brand,
Yeah,
basically.
it's like I
So
imagine like you remember on Pop Stars and
yeah,
Britain's Got Talent. Yeah, people have
yeah,
been told they're really good by the family, and they come in and yeah,
yeah.
name that
There's
go
no,
on the
yeah,
show.
there's none of that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the pressure's on immediately. But yeah, they do give you a bit of a structure. So almost like week one, have a draft for your talk.
yeah,
They then offer feedback as well. So you can give them a written draft and they will say, this is great. So yeah, week two, you start to do a lot of marketing and promotion of talk, especially if it's in person, if they want to bring people in. You do a little bit of social media for their channels. You do some kind of private interviews for some of their partners. But yeah, consistently you are giving them versions of your talk, even recording them as well. So I had to record a version of my talks, make sure it all fitted okay and was on time, etc. So yeah, so I had someone I was working with throughout that maybe about 2 months before the lead up to the whole TED,
great.
just to practice and give any feedback. And obviously they're really good. They've got like really good templates of how to um, create your talk so it flows nicely and almost be the architect of creating the content that hits the right notes, basically. Fortunately, this obviously the story that I said earlier around selling everything and then bringing that concept into a professional one, the story was already there. I just had to package it up in 15 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I thought I thought it would be harder than it was, but maybe because I'd written a book and maybe because I'd gone and rewritten and retold the story so many times, 8 or 9 minutes was gone straight away, basically laying down the foundations of right here I was as an independent individual having a life full of clutter and overspending and over consuming, and actually that's what damage did it do to me, the community, the climate, etc. And actually, once I got rid of it, here are all the advantages, you know, so more money, more time, more space, a
Yeah.
different career, you know, being braver, all of these things. And I was like, right, so then how do I then create that at scale from in a professional context? And again, I just used another story. So I wove two stories together of going traveling, coming, almost letting go, and then going back into a life that was cluttered, a professional one, and how that conflicted with the personal one that I'd created. And then the more I kept listening and researching to more people to the build up, so I was like, everyone is really busy, like everybody. And I was like, actually, this can help a lot of people who are overworked, overwhelmed, can't see the wood for the trees, can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, um, and almost burnt out, or maybe even burnt out and not even know it.
Yeah.
Flavor and sprinkled with a bit of research and a bit of science, and then a call to action.
Yeah.
And that was the arc. The whole story kind of lovely woven in, and then a little bit of a sprinkle of Lovett humor, and random
Nice.
references of the Hulk and Danny Dyer.
I
That's
love that.
only
Yeah. That's
only
quite
some
early on in
people.
the talk, isn't it? I know that about stepping on, is it a piece of Lego or something, or stepping on something? I remember you saying CDs
Yeah,
and that, and then
yeah,
turning into
yeah,
the Hulk. Yeah. Yeah. There was a
yeah,
great line, actually. You talked about how, I can't remember it word for word now. You'll probably know it, but you mentioned in that line about, if I've got this many things that's making me green or like making me turn into the
yeah,
Hulk, there's probably something I need to do. It's just
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah. But
And so that's the thing. I kind of used that story, put and almost like how I wrote the book, and um, you know, made sure it sounded like me rather than it becoming bland and not me trying to just portray a message. You know, do less, buy less, you can be more, etc. Yes, we all kind of know, we get that, right? But it's the story, and you know as well as I know, the emotion that is connected with a story
yeah.
is the key bit around TED, and they do encourage that. But lucky enough, I kind of had that. The practice, right? The
Yes.
practice. So the weird thing is, I practiced in the woods with my dog.
Brilliant. Nice. Yeah.
So in my head, I was like, I will practice it with Jeff Way, right?
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
know
great. Yeah.
Jeff.
Shout out to Jeff. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So
A previous episode as well, Stuck with Jeff Way. Yeah. Absolutely. Check that out.
yes,
Yeah. Sorry. Thank
brilliant.
you.
So I thought, well, I'll use Jeff. He'll be a good soundboard, and a few others. And I never ended up doing that in the end. And what I did was I recorded sections of it on my phone. And again, rather than listen to music or podcasts, I'd listen to myself, almost
Great.
like thinking it was lyrics. Because you know, when you listen to a song for a few times, you get the lyrics get stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And so over the years, you can not listen to a song for years. You put that first beat on, the lyrics come back, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so I thought I want to try and try that approach,
Great.
and that
Yeah.
really worked. There was a few occasions when I'm walking Daisy the dog in the woods. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm talking about the Incredible Hulk and a DVD collection out loud. And then someone walks around the corner, and I'm like, "Don't worry about. I'm
Yeah.
not talking to myself. I'm practicing.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just practicing my TED talk. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You didn't ask,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm going
All
to
right.
tell you
Okay. Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I use that because that's one of my favorite places is to be walking in nature because it generates more creativity than being stuck
Yeah. Yeah.
indoors. So I thought if I can have that atmosphere and background, then I can then make changes if needed. So it all came about really by walking out in nature, reciting it over and over again, and then yeah, almost breaking it down into maybe 4 or 5 parts. So every part, once that bit ended, I knew what followed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it all kind of then created this story. There was moments where, right, okay, story ends now, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the science behind it and actually the research that I'm not just talking rubbish here. Like
Yeah.
this is not just me. This is happening to millions of people,
Yeah.
and actually the research and science proves that we have biases towards addition.
Yeah.
and there's latest stats on overwork and how much time we waste on rubbish tasks and things like that. And then a final call to action. It's like, right, guys, now you know all of this. What are you going to do? And an inspirational line at the end. How do you create your new normal to make it more about less? So, and that's how it all came about.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's good structure. Yeah, because there's a nice format structure there to this is what I'm going to talk about, this is why, this is how, and then the final what if, that call to action. That's really good. A question I'd love to ask you about this then, in terms of visualization, a lot of speakers tend to visualize themselves on the stage presenting, and some people even get a chance to see the venues before, so they can see what they would physically look like, so they can think of that on their walks. Did you get to see the venue already, or even try it out weeks before, or even get to see what it would look like before the day? No, brilliant.
No. I just went there on the day.
Right.
I didn't even get an opportunity to practice on the day.
Oh wow, brilliant.
Because there was so much going on. There's a live stream that was about 10 minutes or so behind, that they were got up and running at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know what? I almost forgot that I was doing a talk, because I was so excited about meeting the other speakers and connecting with people, and I just wanted to be in the moment. I just wanted to be there and experience the whole day.
Yeah.
And I was there talking to people, and people were really nervous, and I was like trying to go, what are you up to? What are you getting up to? Where you been? What did you do last night? So like, can you leave me alone?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember my talk.
Focus. There's me being this excitable child going, you're a lot smarter than me. Tell me something I don't know.
Yeah.
And they were like, can we just talk about it after the talk? I just want to get this out of the way.
But that's a great thing though, Chris, because that's a state of flow, isn't it? Like when, we described this before as in states of flow, of like when a 40-minute keynote feels like 4 minutes, or you do something, you think, well, yeah, where's the time gone? So for you not panicking or going, oh my God, unless that's to come, I don't know. But, of you not thinking about the talk and just enjoying that moment, that's a great sign of this is where you need to be.
Yeah. And I almost felt confident in myself. I was like, I deserve to be here with all of these other people who are way much smarter than I am. And, this is a different story, and I'm going to tell it. And then I'm going to walk off stage, and I'm going to watch everybody else do their talk and be inspired. And I kind of broke it down into that. But yeah, yes. Do you want to go on to the panic now?
Well, yeah, I will in a second, actually. Yes. But there's a question actually I wanted to ask you about the red carpet. That's obviously one of the big things that people look at, and it's what they remember. I've seen some speakers that use like certain parts of the stage to anchor a certain part of their content. So if they go to the right, they know that's going to be the story about the past or whatever, and they'll move on, and that's going to be a story about something. Was that the case for you? Because how do you usually present in terms of, for me, I'm quite animated, so I'd probably, to be quite grounded would be quite difficult for me. I just love flapping around a lot. So how did you feel with that? Like, is that your natural style? Did it feel right to be in like a small kind of place, or are you allowed to use the whole stage?
No, because they film it. You have to be on that circular red bit of carpet.
Right.
So yeah, there were a couple of cameras from different angles and photographers and things like that. So I couldn't move around too much. But I'm similar to you in regards to flapping around my arms, right? And I don't know if you might see from people that are listening and watch the video or the photos, my arms are just, they're doing a lot, right? I think it's because my lower body can't go anywhere.
Yeah, of course, it's the energy, isn't it? Trying to do something. Yeah.
So there's a few points where I'm describing sizes of things, like lots of a thing, and so I will use like lots of big arms and things like that, almost for scale. But no, I didn't have the opportunity to use the whole stage. I just had to stay in that little carpet, circular bit carpet.
Right. Oh, interesting. Very nice. There's a picture in front of this, in front of my laptop, which is a TED stage, which is what I look at, and it's got the the TED letters and the red thing. So there's something so iconic about it, isn't it? That I think that's one of the attraction points of. It just looks like a fantastic stage, but it's probably just a carpet they just roll up and pull out and just stick on each stage. But there's something so special about seeing speakers with the letters behind them, and it's a great shot. You know, those photos that you've got, and even the video looks amazing.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
so yeah, so you've gone through this process. Then you've applied for it. You've been brave. You've had some coaching, giving you some weekly tasks, that kind of thing, to lead up to it. You're there on the day. You're really excited to see everybody, and then you briefly mentioned that there's a slight panic station. What happened there?
Well, so there's a couple of bits. One bit that I knew at the time, and one bit that I didn't. The bit that I knew at the time was that they were live streaming it. So one of the bits that I hadn't really been phased about was the magnitude of the event. You know, they always, the kind of event organizer will say to you, "Oh, we're going to have thousands of people join," and I'm like, okay, that doesn't really mean anything to me. But I didn't realize at the time, and so I'm sitting backstage, and people are starting to ferry in. And I kind of look around. I was like, these are people who are here to continue their own personal journey. They're here for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And people from different countries are tuned into the live stream. And one of the organizers calls me into one of the rooms backstage where they've got a laptop set up, and they say, "Oh, Chris, do you want to have a look at what's going on for the people who are viewing via YouTube on the stream?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be quite cool." And the amount of people commenting, going, "I'm looking forward to seeing Chris Lovett," like, whoever from like Indonesia or all across the world, who I had no idea how they even know about this concept or me or anything like that, was just baffling to me. And I was that moment, I was like, bugger.
This is real now.
It's just got a little bit more real. And then it all became about prep after that. So just put myself into the best. So, you know, I didn't want to drink too much. Every morning I have a smoothie and blueberries, and they give me they give my brain a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? I have to give brain energy.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
so
absolutely,
so it keeps me creative. So if I do forget where I'm going, I can quickly snap back into the story and carry on.
They're actually inside. This is a side topic here, but height supplements. If you've seen them, they're all over Instagram. Stephen Bartlett, I think he's sponsored by them, and I've had them. They're really great actually, and they use blueberries as well because it helps with brain power as well. So there you go. Yeah. And I'm not sponsored, by the way, to everyone listening, but there you go. Check it out. Sorry,
eat your blueberries, eat your fruit. So that was that first bit, and you know, I was conscious that everyone else that I was meeting were practicing their lines, and they were they wanted to converse, but they needed to be left alone for a bit. So I'm like wandering around going, "Can we just get going?" And they go, "Right, Chris, we're going to start. This is what we're going to do. And it's all panic, right? So I've been backstage in, you know, with music gigs. I've done hundreds of them when I used to do loads of music. So I've been artists, musicians that are about to go on stage. No one's really listening to what's going on, right? There's just so much activity that you just take in these little bits. So I've got people talking to me going, "Right, Chris, what we're going to do is," and then once you hear this, that's when you do that. And I'm not going, "I don't know what." Just point to me where I need to go at the time I need to go. I will go out there and I'll do it. That's it. Yeah, I can hear the noise getting bigger and bigger, and then they play on the big screen. They play like a little bit of a warm up before I come out, right? So I'm there kind of like a boxer, like Eminem in 8 Mile.
Yeah,
and but I wasn't sick or mum spaghetti. I didn't do that.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'm there, but I don't know exactly what's going on. I know there's lots of the crowd noise and stuff, and then they have this big laughter, and I'm like, what are they laughing at? Because I don't really know. And then they go, "Right, okay, welcome our first speaker. We can talk about minimalism in the workplace, less busy, more impact. Please welcome Chris Lovett." They applaud, and I walk out, and it's just dark.
Yeah.
I get myself onto the red bit of carpet, and as soon as I just start saying my first line, it all flows into the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a couple of bits that you don't know. No one really knows these, so exclusive for your podcast, Rick.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah.
I missed 2 bits of the story. You'll never know
really?
what they are.
Right.
But I forgot 2 bits. But no one really knows. So that's okay. They weren't massive, but it's not perfect. And we talked about perfectionism before, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was really good. I enjoyed it. I didn't realize at the time that there was someone in the front row who had an iPad and it had the time basically. So obviously, as you know, you got, I think 15 to 18 minutes is cut off, right? And my talk was 14 minutes. And I'd been talking with State of Flow that we were talking about earlier. I hadn't even realized, and I looked over and I saw the iPad in it. It just clicked over to 11 minutes. And I went, wow.
Yeah.
I better start wrapping this up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the slides behind me were all messed up.
Oh, really?
So you might see, again, so behind the scenes, you might see me keep looking. They're all messed up. They're all in the wrong order, right? And they go too quickly. So while I'm explaining this first bit of research about, I think it's about the University of Virginia and how they talk about this experiment they did with the Lego house, which then I connect back about a Lego that I decluttered the Lego and things like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't even finished talking about that, and they'd moved on to the next picture.
Oh, so it's automatic. Yeah, because there's no clicker, is there?
No. So someone up in the gantry, the producer, they click based on my script. So they've got a copy of my script, and then it says, then go to slide 2. And because I'd paused, I think they'd just gone, oh, he's forgot that bit, moved on to the next bit, and then I carry on.
Yeah, great.
And next time I look round, I'm looking at it going, that's not. So I have to think quickly, and I go, right.
It's not like you can just stop mid-TED and go, excuse me, guys, we're on the wrong slide. Can we start again?
Exactly. So I just carry on. I just carried on. So for those of you who are watching very, very closely, you might sense that tiny little bit of panic going,
okay.
What
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that at all, Chris, actually. Yeah, didn't notice it at all. So great.
So there you go. So even the best laid plans, most prepared, there's still something that might go wrong, and just be okay with it, really. It's So the slides are there. They go too quickly. They're in the wrong order. It's fine. No problem.
Yeah.
What I also didn't find out until afterwards was that the TED talk that they played before they invited me on was Tim Urban's procrastination talk.
Which is, okay, brilliant. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing this. Yes, great.
Right. So that's what they were all laughing at.
Right.
So that I've shared that TED talk with many clients.
Yeah.
And I've watched it time and time and time again for little hints on the little comedic interjections that he has. And again, for listeners, if you've not seen it, it's brilliant. There's a reason why there's multi-million people that have seen this, right? Because it's amazing. And I don't know this until afterwards. So I go back home and I tell people, oh, there was this big laughter. And then I watched the whole stream back, and I'm like, they went and showed the Tim Urban procrastination video, and then they go, okay, everyone, right now Chris Lovett's coming on now. And I'm like, how can you compare this guy who's done this amazing thing, and then all of a sudden you get this scrub coming out to talk about his DVD collection? So that was a kind of almost a bit of information that had I have known that, would that have made me maybe reference it, or maybe even just like, Tim, imagine following that, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I suppose I better. But because I didn't know that, it was kind of a bit of a blessing in disguise. But they do tell you before, don't do anything. Don't engage with the audience. Don't say hello. How are you doing? Just go out there, do your talk. Once your talk is done, you say thank you and walk off.
Yes.
And you'll notice, if you're just watching TED Talks, you'll notice that when you said start, they just get straight. They don't ask. They just start and they end. That's it.
Which you just went straight into the story, which was great. It gripped you straight away, which was like, oh, right, brilliant, we're starting, which is great, isn't it? It's none of this, hello, Yeah, gonna go through a 24 slide with you right now. Just bear with me a second. Right, okay, the first slide. Yeah, just straight in. Yeah, great. I love that.
So yeah, so there was all of that kind of going on in the background that people don't really know.
Yeah.
And I shared it with a group of people on Patreon, but other than that, no one else knew that kind
Great.
of
Wow.
panic. So there we go. It's now out into.
But well, that's good though, because that's one of the skills of a professional speaker, of just dealing with things. Because likewise, like you said with the stories there, I've done it in the past where I'll memorize a talk and it'd be perfect for 15 minutes. But something will happen in a talk when you do it live, like you might get a response from someone in the audience, and then there's a bit of improv or something happens. So that's a great skill that you've kind of modularized your talk to say, I've realized that I might be running out of time soon. I can't add that in, but I'm just going to carry on. And this is the thing, no one knows. So everyone that's watched it wouldn't have known that, which is great. So yeah, well done for just did that. Well, here's a question for you then. If you did know, like you said there, that Tim Urban was going to be played before you, would that have changed anything?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, the discipline of just going out and doing your own material and leaving.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But thing is, Rick, I've got a habit of improv. I've got a habit of mentioning something that's happening live just to bring a bit of levity to some of the topics that have a lot of gravity. And so I might have, let's continue the laugh, let's continue
of course,
feeling good of happy, right?
Yeah.
And I might have, if I'd have known, I might have gone, well, blimey, I've watched that Tim Urban quite a few times. Brilliant, isn't it?
And it'd throw you off, I guess, and take you off the script. And also for anyone, so for me, I wasn't aware that there was a video played. In my head, as watching back your TEDx video on YouTube and TED, it looks like you're just coming out. I didn't even know that. So if you had come out, I would have gone, why is he talking about Tim Urban for? So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Because during the day, there was two types of tickets. There was this live stream, which you were there all day and you had loads of other content. Plus, if you're there in person, the live stream ended and then you had a panel Q&A at the end. So I was there for another hour.
Yeah.
Posts everyone speaking with a panel discussion, which I can tell you a little bit about if you want to know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So before and during, they kind of captured some questions from the audience. So there's an opportunity for the audience to ask questions of the speakers based on what they were talking about. And so I'm sitting there with these other amazing people. You know, there's a professor of leadership there. There's someone who works in cyber from Russia. There's another author from Israel who talks about career. I mean, there's all sorts of like talented people, and then so I got a tiny little bit of imposter syndrome whilst I was sitting there because I don't know if you can see, I'm in my trainers and my jeans, right? And everyone's dressed up to the nines, and I've just like turned up off
a sustainable
off the market.
Wasn't it a sustainable option? I remember you sharing on one of your stories.
Yes,
wasn't your shirt a recycled thing or something like that? I remember.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So so my shirt was rubbish. So it's the same shirt. So here's another link to it that people might want to check out. I can't remember the guy's name, but he runs a company called Rapanui, Rapanui. He did a TED talk 2 weeks before I did mine in the same shirt. It looks very much like me, black jeans, trainers. So I think I might post it. I was like, this isn't me. But this guy looks like me, and he talks about sustainable fashion and things like that. So so I had that shirt. Nice. So that was a kind of sustainable. Yeah, so I was in me jeans and me trainers, and people were asking really quite highbrow, important questions, and then they said, "Oh, Chris, how do you implement?" If someone says to you, your boss, for example, says to you, "Oh, can you go and do 5 things?" How do you reject that? And so I basically said, well, why don't if you've got capacity for 4, you put the onus back onto the other person, say, right, I can do 4. So what one thing is of a less of a priority for you, because I can only do those 4 things. which went down fine. And then afterwards, one of the other speakers was referencing career change, and there's a picture of me with my kind of my hands up, going, "I told you so" type approach,
Yeah.
because she says the key bit about career change is less is more. And I go like this. I go put my hands up and go, well, yeah,
There
yeah.
you go.
And then
Yeah.
the whole place just erupts, right?
Brilliant.
And she's kind of looking at me going, oh, right. See, so we've connected the dots between our two very differing, and she's from Russia and I'm from London.
Yeah.
Our two very different talks meet directly
Yeah.
with this whole less is more concept.
Great. Brilliant.
So everyone kind of had a little laugh about that. But
That's
yeah, so that was all
brilliant.
good.
That's a nice way to show as well, isn't it? That TED have picked the right speakers for that occasion as well, because if it's connecting two different random talks, connecting the same thing of something that's important. So yeah, great.
Yeah.
Love that.
So there you go.
Yeah.
It's an experience that I will treasure
Yeah.
forever. And a moment in my life where I can say I was really proud of the whole thing, proud of the whole leading up to it, being brave enough to put my name in the hat.
Yeah.
To kind of put my head above the parapet and go, I've got a story to tell that might be important.
Yeah.
To go there, to do it, and it to come out okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Jobs are good.
And I think there's some power there in rephrasing that as well, Chris, of, I have a story that is important, not rather than may be important. It is, and it was, and you've proved it, and before I ask you about obviously the next steps, because this is putting you on a platform now that's global. So anybody can now go watch this on the TED website. How did you feel when you walked off the red dot, the red carpet, knowing you've just done your TED talk? How did that feel?
There was a relief. There was that certain sense of accomplishment, like, that's it. I've put some decent effort into that. That's it. That's done now. I think I did a good job. And at the back, obviously, you've got people that are there working with TED, and they all go, that was great. That was brilliant. And almost like I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, cool, there, they liked it. So the crowd liked it. It felt very, very, it felt like I'd arrived. It felt like, right, now I deserve to be here.
Right.
So there's a lot of accomplishment and a lot of relief. And I went and sat my ass down and I finished my blueberries.
Nice.
I was like, my mouth is so dry. I'm gonna have a drink, and I went and had a whiskey. I think it was 10:30 in the morning.
Nice.
So one of the other speakers had bought like a tiny little bottle to kind of calm any nerves, and I was like, I'll have one of them now.
Yeah.
And so we had a little toast, but
wow.
But the second speaker, who called Megan Wrights, who is she's a friend of mine now, so we connected post all of that, and we've met up a couple of times. I was very, very conscious that she had some bad news a couple of days before doing the talk. She was one of these people that I was really interested to get to know, and she was in the corner, almost with her headphones on, basically saying, "Leave me alone. Leave me alone." And I was very conscious of that. And so once she came off stage, I was the first person she saw, and I basically said, "Give me a hug."
Yeah.
And she fell into my arms, and almost like saying, the two of us were like, okay, we've both accomplished this thing now. And I kind of felt that there was no one else there for her. Like, I didn't have anyone there for me, that no friends were there, no one that I knew. And she was the same. So we kind of then, we had each other.
Yeah.
So not only was the TED complete, but I got friendships off the back of it, which will hopefully last for a lifetime. And who knows, there could be some collaborations in the future that might lead on to something. But
wow.
But yeah, that was I would always remember that, Megan coming off and going, almost like that's a whole release, and just having that hug afterwards with a stranger was great.
Well, I think it's a fantastic thing. There's so many people out there that want to do a TED talk, and it's on the top, isn't it? If you compare it in terms of a hierarchy thing, that's like where people want to be. So, I'm not surprised, what a relief, and that sensation of, oh, wow, amazing. And yeah, well done to you, mate. Absolutely brilliant. I was so amazed when I found it on your Instagram. I was like, oh my God, Chris is doing it. Chris is doing it. Wow, amazing. And it was great to see all that content coming through. And then obviously the lead up to it. And then I think I was at a wedding on the day because I was going to try to come along and I couldn't in the end because I was at a wedding, I think, on the day.
Yeah.
But just seeing all the photos. And then when I see that first photo of you on the stage, I was so proud, but also just like,
Thanks,
oh my God,
mate.
that's Chris Lovett. Oh my God, that's Chris who I interviewed on the podcast. Oh my God, So yeah, absolutely amazing. Well, I guess then, Chris, obviously, you mean, that's out there forever, which is, like Tim Urban, you can now say that you are that person
God,
to
what?
have done a TED talk. I've always wanted to be a person that says I've done a TED talk. Is there anything well, I've got a couple of questions for you. In hindsight, going through all the process and the applying and the performing and that and presenting it, is there anything you do differently next time if you did another one?
No, not one. Maybe invite, maybe be a little braver to say to my friends and family, come along.
Yeah.
Because I was very conscious that there's still something about me performing in front of strangers and other affiliations, colleagues. No problem, right? I perform, I do what I need to do. There's something about friends, family that might just completely throw me off. So I'm like, you stay away because I know what you're like. You stay away. I'd say my mum, for example. If my mum, she'd be saying, "Oh, hi," she'd probably wave, like, "I love you."
Yeah. You're doing a great job, Chris. Keep it up. Yeah.
So I wanted to go there clean without having to worry about anyone, having to go and meet anyone at the door and bring them in or whatever. I just wanted to go there and do it. So I wouldn't really change any of the approach leading up to it, I don't think.
That's lovely. What would you say to pre-Chris selling all his stuff, traveling in the corporate world of 2 years' time, whatever, you'll be on a TEDx stage? What would that Chris say?
You're having a laugh, mate. There's a distinct memory. I remember being at my mum and dad's house. So I just got back from traveling and I don't have a place to live. I don't have a job and I'm staying at my mum and dad's. So my old bedroom has been turned into this storage room. And again, if you've not read the book, you can find out all about it. I'm in this storage room. The only thing I've got left that I kept was a tiny little TV. I've got Apple TV, which is, that little black box. That's pretty much all I've got in regards to tech, an iPad, and that was it. And so I connected my Apple TV, and there's a TED channel on Apple TV. So you click on it, you can watch TED Talks. And so I was watching lots and lots of TED Talks about various different bits and pieces, not really knowing exactly what some of them was said, but I was just there to learn. I was just there to find out more stuff, really. And I said to my partner at the time, I fancy doing one of them in jest.
Yeah.
I reckon I could do one of them, almost like going, that'd be a laugh, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So and that was in 2018.
Yeah.
When I came back to the UK. So from then, writing the book, doing some talks in corporates, doing some events and festivals, and then doing the TED. I remember that kind of going, that would be interesting if I could do that one day.
Yeah.
But never really kind of thinking that I had the ability, not the ability and the credibility as well, because I was looking at all these other people going, well, they've got letters after their name, they're doctors, professors, they're experts in their field, they're leaders of CEOs, whatever. I'm not any of those things. But what I can be is hopefully a bit of a torchbearer to people who have a story to tell, but they don't follow the traditional route of success, because I definitely don't. And it just goes to show that if I can do it, if my working class foul-mouthed ass can do it, then you can do it. If you've got a story to tell, tell it because the world needs to hear it. And
Yeah.
that's all I did. And here we are talking about it. So there we go.
That's lovely. I was going to ask a last question of what would you say to anybody, but I think you just answered that perfectly about if you've got a story to share, then share it. So yeah, Chris, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on and sharing that. And yeah, a fascinating journey. And congratulations to you. Will there be any more TEDx's or even TED, the next one? Any more in the pipeline?
I think what's coming up next, Rick, is a second book. So it's taking all of the concepts from the talk and giving people a lot more initiative, a lot more motivation, and some tips on how actually they can implement some of this less is more approach into their professional life. Because since then, so you think since March 2022, or are we in September now?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of kicked off still. You know, the cost of living crisis is, well, we're in it and we're not even into winter yet.
Yeah.
And it's a real challenge that, you know, I'm having to deal with, that we're all having to deal with. And so you can't just give out this less is more approach and just down tools. Like we can't. We've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
But then if we go the other end of the spectrum and we work excessively all the time, that's our health, our physical, mental health, and relationships are at stake. So there's this. You're between a rock and a hard place now.
Yeah.
If you can't work less because you need the money, you can't work more because everything else is at stake. So what do? You can't rely on systems or, you know, the societal approaches to change. As you know, governments ain't going to make. They're going to maybe make a tiny little dent, but you know, how's that going to help? You know, really. Your boss, the organizations you work with and for, like, are they really going to make a difference? Are they really able to help you? So now it's all about taking back a little bit of control and going, right, I need to help myself now. And this is how I'm going to do it. Creating the boundaries, getting really good at saying no, prioritizing, figuring out as many life hacks as possible so you can still be an amazing success without burning out or quitting. In this middle bit, the nice part, where it's a non-binary part, it's this gray area, it's this funky area. I call it business as unusual, or
nice,
or sustainable as usual, right? Because if we keep going the way we're going now, it's going to kill us.
Yeah.
And that's no exaggeration. The science and the research I've got for this second book, which is called Relentless, by the way.
Nice, brilliant. Oh, great. I love that. Yeah, the lesson. Yeah, great.
That's at the end.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, there's lots and lots of stats, research, and stories, horrific stories that I've got of suicides and people dying through excessive working. So much so that Japan have even got a name for it, which is called karoshi, which means death by overwork.
Jeez, wow.
So for a culture to create a whole word that, you know, creates that thing, that tells us that something's not quite right here.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that this second book is going to be a little bit of hope for people who maybe can't see a way out at the moment, but can use minimalism and decluttering that we thought was just in a personal life, bring it into their professional life, and actually use those approaches to remove the excess, to get really good at letting go and embracing JOMO instead of JOMO instead of FOMO, letting go of the guilt, doing less but better. So that's what's next. So
yeah,
I have
very
no more
relative.
TEDs. I have no more TEDs lined up, but I do have lots and lots of talks lined up for the rest of this year because it's important.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, but the books and the corporate talks are what's on the agenda for the remainder of 2022.
Oh, fantastic. Very exciting. Yeah. Good luck with the book and that. And we'll make sure that we share that on the newsletter to everybody. But yeah, Chris, thanks for coming on. If people want to find out, obviously, you're taught, obviously, it's called Less Busy, More Impact. And it's at TEDx Holt London. So you can find it on YouTube and on the TED channel as well. But if people want to find out more about you, how can they find out more about your work?
I'll just go Instagram or LinkedIn, Chris Lovett. Look for the guy with the big hair. Discovery of Less is the book on, you can get it on Amazon or Waterstones or anywhere you would go online to buy your books. It's really cheap and it's really good. And if you want to try before you buy, you can do. You can get chapter 1, which is the biggest chapter in the book, for free on my website, which is lessisprogress.com. But ultimately, yeah, let's connect on socials and share some stories, and we'll go from there.
Brilliant. Chris, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you.
My pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, mate.